Hey friends, it's Jess Francisco from the YouTube channel Love Jess. I'm really excited to share another planner layout with you in my Archer and Olive bullet journal. And this time we're taking a break from weekly spreads or monthly layouts and we're moving on to some memory keeping. I really love using my bullet journal for memory keeping, and I think it's a really cool way to combine function with an artistic sort of flair and really make your journal more personal and more of a keepsake rather than something that you might toss at the end. Now, of course, you could still toss it, but it's nice to kind of have these memories saved. I'm using it as sort of a hybrid between planner and scrapbook, and I think that's a really cool mix for me. When I am doing artwork like this in my bullet journal, I really like to mask off some of the areas to get a really cool effect where I am able to sort of offset a really vivid or brightly colored area with some nice white open spaces. I also use just blank paper or copy paper from my printer to protect the other pages of my notebook, particularly on the ends, so that the outside edges of the pages don't get stained on other pages other than the one that I am working on. And I find that this works pretty well to protect those pages and also the canvas outer edge of my planner. I don't like to get ink on it if I can help it. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm starting off by doing a little ink blending. I'm using the same color combination that I used in my previous planner spread where I did a celestial theme, and I wanted to kind of play off of that. Now I have some snow themed images that I'm going to use, and it works perfect for this color combination, but you can also use either a different color palette or just use different photos and it will completely change the look of this. So in the end, mine is going to look a little more wintry, even though we're getting into spring now. These pictures are from a later snow in the season, which is very rare for us where I live, and I wanted to document those in my planner, even though we're moving into kind of the spring sort of time of year. Now I applied my inks with a foam ink blending tool, and I'll have everything linked for you in the description. And if you want to take a look at the blog post, that will be ready and have all of the supplies used as well. I used those blending tools to apply the ink. Once I was done with that, I spritzed a little clear water in my hand and flicked that onto the background. I let it soak in for just a little bit, and then I removed the excess with a clean paper towel. Once I was done with that, I used a little bit of acrylic gloss spray. This is basically a liquid paint to tap little splatters directly onto my background, and you can see it looks like a beautiful starry night sky. Now, when I put my snow themed images on here, it changes the look a little bit and it really looks more like a snowy night sky, but if you use different pictures, it will really give you that effect of the sort of space or a night sky galaxy sort of theme. Now I wanted to use these Archer and Olive stamps. These are so super cute. This is the Celestial stamp set. This is a really cool clear stamp set. You need an acrylic block to use these, but it clings directly to that block. And then you can use an ink pad to stamp that directly on your layout. Now I've used the Let the Stars Guide You in the lower right-hand corner, and now I'm using the stars from the same stamp set to go ahead and add a little interest around the edges. Now you can see the little paper around the edge is keeping the rest of my notebook safe so that I don't have to worry about the black ink getting on the outer pages like I mentioned before. I'm going to use one of my acrylograph pins to go ahead and mark off some of the areas that I want to do some journaling in. This is where I'm going to kind of give a caption or a summary of what's going on in the pictures. And this is what takes it from planning more to the memory keeping aspect. Even with those pictures there, you kind of give a little background and it's like a built-in scrapbook page, which I think is really cool. I'm using a little ruler here. Any ruler you have will do. I like that this particular one is clear because it lets me see what I'm doing even though I'm blocking off that area. And now I'm going to add a little bit of color to the outer edges of my photos. I find that adding this little bit of black ink around the edges makes the photos look more finished, confined, and it gives them a pop a little bit. It makes the colors a little bit more bright, in my opinion, and it makes it look a little finished. You can see them side by side there, and I think the difference is really cool. I like the way it looks. I like adding that little bit of something extra, and I feel like it kind of gives it a more artistic approach, sort of, where you get that feeling of like a more intense photography session, if you will. I'm no professional photographer by any means. These photos were taken on my iPhone, and I just printed them out on my home computer, just like a regular printer. But you still get a kind of neat sort of vignette almost look to it with this effect. Once I was done inking up all the edges of my photos, I set them aside for a little bit. I didn't want them to smudge, so I wanted to give them a few seconds to dry. And while I did that, I worked on my sentiment. Now, I did a little bit of sketching just to make sure that my title would fit here in the upper left-hand corner. And all I'm writing is "remember this" in a very basic sort of hand-lettered script. I wrote it first with pencil, and then I'm going over top of it with my acrylograph pen to give it a nice finish. And then I'll go back through and erase those like leftover lines so that I don't have any pencil lines remaining when I'm done, and it'll look like I was super fancy and was able to just draw that directly with the pen without having to like stencil it out or do a test run first. It's a little bit of movie magic for us in our planners, but I'm here for it. Once I'm done with my hand lettering, I do add in a second little bit here. So we did "remember," and then we also added in this at the bottom here. I put the picture in place just so that I could see what it would look like and make sure that my sentiment would fit when all was said and done. Excuse my head in the frame. But I really wanted to make sure that I was getting it in just the right spot. I added a little arrow just so that I would have kind of we're pointing to this photo as in a "remember this moment" sort of vibe. And then I used a little bit of tape or adhesive runner on the back of the photo to apply it to my journal. Now, I didn't quite line it up perfectly, so I actually used a black pen to go around the edge and just fill in that tiny little sliver of white space that was left over. And in the end, I think it still looks just as good. You won't notice that there's an error, or at least I don't think you can. Let me know if you did. I'm applying all of those photos directly into the notebook with a tape runner, and then I'm ready to use the stamps from another Archer and Olive stamp set to add some accents to my background. I wanted to overlap some of these boxes just to get kind of a nice layered effect for some of these. And what I've done here is stamped the image that says "important" directly over top of the little box that I had drawn before. I had started with the acrylograph pen, and I didn't like that it was just a thin line. I kind of wanted something a little bit more bulky and a little bit more exciting to offset the image here. And so I went back in, drew another line around the outside, and then just added some slanted lines to give it a little bit more interest and excitement. I hope that it added the effect that I was going for. I think it turned out okay, but definitely let me know what you think. Once I was done filling those in, I was ready to move on and add a little more pizzazz to the rest of my layout. So I moved down to the lower left-hand corner, and I decided to add in a partial stamp. So you see that I've masked off the bottom of the stamp there. I used just some low-tack Post-it tape. You could even use just a piece of paper if you have that to cover up the portion you don't want to get ink on. You stamp with the ink, or you ink the stamp up, I should say, and then remove that mask that you put on the bottom, and it allows you to stamp only part of the stamp onto your paper instead of the whole stamped image. So you can see there, I just got kind of like a little title block up at the top that now I can put a caption or a title for that little journal block in there, and I filled it in with my acrylograph pen as well. Now my layout is ready for the pen. I'm ready to do my journaling, and I hope that you love how it turned out. I hope this inspires you to do some creative planning in your journal as well, and that you are able to get some memory keeping in there in the near future. If you create anything with this inspiration in mind, be sure to tag us at Archer and Olive or at LoveJessCo on Instagram or wherever you share your content, and we would love to see what you're up to. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you in another video really soon.